Married, slept with another man, and regretted it immediately. Husband found out I am not sure if he wants to leave me or not, but I am willing to do anything to fix it. Need advice? My husband and I have been married for 12 years and have been together for about 16. We're both 34 years old. We have 2 lovely children, a 10-year-old boy and a 9-year-old daughter. My husband is a beautiful guy, a fantastic provider, despite the fact that we both work, and a wonderful parent. My parents adore husband more than they adore my brother or me. My female friends are all gushing about how fortunate I am to have locked him down. Despite all of this, I had an affair. This other man and I met at work. He works in the same building as me, but in a separate office and on a different level. He was taller than my husband, spent more time in the gym than my husband, he doesn't have a family of his own, had a great sculpted chin, looked like a model, and so on. Other man began devoting attention to me, and eventually I caved in. I concluded that having Mr. Mom at home was insufficient for me. I persuaded myself that my hubby does not pay enough attention to me. Other man invites me to a hotel room after work after 2 months of wooing, and we sleep together. It was the worst experience I'd ever had. It was everything fantastic until we began having sex, at which point everything seemed weird. There was a tremendous feeling of remorse and humiliation that gripped me. I understood I wasn't getting what I wanted and that I was making a tremendous mistake. I returned home. My spouse was keeping the kids entertained at home. They were in front of the TV, and husband was doing theatrics for the kids, pretending to have a sword battle with an imagined adversary, and the kids were all laughing and giggling. He was probably giving them a tale. I stood there for a few minutes, then went to take a shower, but no amount of water could wipe away the guilt I felt, so I started doing all on. Put to repent. I had no intention of confessing to my spouse, but I resolved to be the greatest version of myself for him. As a result, we began having sex every day. If it wasn't feasible, I made sure he got at least a BJ. Because my parents were more than willing to babysit at the end of a simple phone call, I began cooking more at home and resuming date evenings. I can confidently state that our connection was stronger than ever. 6 weeks later, other man contacted me at work and said he'd want to redo our session. I told him no, that it was an error, and that he should leave me alone. He persisted, and I told him that I love my husband, and that other guy is not half the man that my husband is. Later that day, I return home, greet my husband, make small chat with him, and go take a shower before we head out to see a movie. I stepped out of the shower, and I could sense something wasn't right. Husband was weeping as he looked at his phone. When I inquired what was wrong, he handed me his phone. Other man provided him a few texts outlining how we spent our time together, how we planned it, screenshots of chats the hotel received, some images, and so on. Husband questioned whether it was real, and I told him everything was true. He inquired whether I had ever meant to confess, and I assured him I would have carried it with me to the cemetery. I attempted to explain that it was all a mistake, and that I regretted it more than anything else. Husband told him I'd do whatever to repent, and begged him not to go. He departed for 2 days, did not return my calls, and did not respond to my SMS. I attempted to contact him at work, but was informed he had taken a few days off. He then returned home, spent some time with the children, and began preparing a suitcase for himself. "We're done," he said, "that if I believe I can do anything I want and not suffer the repercussions, he can do whatever he wants and ignore the consequences." He went on to tell me how much he had given up for us, our love, and our marriage. He never completed high school since our baby arrived, and we needed money more than he needed to graduate. He abandoned pals since I didn't feel at ease with them. He prioritized me before his own wants and ambitions. That he spends more time with the kids than I do, and that despite the fact that he loves the kids, he never has time for himself. I, on the other hand, go out with pals after work. And yet, despite all of this, despite all he does for me, I have the audacity to cheat on him. He loved me unconditionally despite my flaws and troubles, and I considered having an affair. He can't imagine spending his life with someone who doesn't respect him. That he should have realized that all of my recent attention to him was motivated by guilt and was not sincere. It's time he focused on himself for a change, and then he left. We each have our own money. He makes about 3 times what I do. We have a joint account where we put money for bills, food, and other expenses. We have a separate account where we put money for the kids, and another account for emergencies, savings, and so forth. He got his pay last week and instantly put money into our joint accounts. That was reassuring. It gives me the impression that he isn't fully out of this mess I've made. We're scheduled to meet tomorrow to talk about where we are and where we're going. I want to make it very apparent to him that I made a terrible mistake and that I'm willing to do anything he asks of me. I'll take on additional chores around the home, limit my time with friends, and devote more time to the kids. If he wants to, I want him to return to school and complete his education. I'm so desperate that I'm prepared to let him sleep with other women if that's what he wants. I simply don't know how to approach him without coming off as manipulative. He never mentioned a divorce throughout all of this, and as far as I know, he hasn't notified anybody. I informed my mother and asked for her opinion, and she was quite disappointed with me. I asked her not to tell anybody else, and she hasn't, to the best of my knowledge. I have some optimism since he isn't bringing divorce into the picture, but I'm afraid of what tomorrow may bring and what he could tell me. Maybe he'll ask for a divorce tomorrow. All I need is some advice. My affairs serve as a wake-up call. I don't want to lose the most important thing in my life. Any suggestions would be much appreciated. Thank you very much. Update. I suppose I'll find out what happens sooner than I expected. He asked me to drop the kids off at my parents' house for the remainder of the day and meet him in a few hours. The good news is that he wants to meet in a site where we used to go when we were younger. The bad news is that all of the preparations I was making, such as writing the letter as other posters suggested, will have to be put on hold. I'm looking for guidance on how to keep my family together. I made several blunders, and the receipt will ruin my family if it hasn't already. Update 2. He is giving me another chance. He moved back home last night. I had the most difficult talk with my husband last night and had to answer a few very hard questions. Stay tuned for the next update. Story 2. I, 27 female, cheated on my husband, 35 male, and I think he deserved it. But it's complicated. Hello, everyone. Let me clarify before everyone starts judging me. I've been with my spouse for 11 years, and we've been married for 3 of those years. I met him when I was very young, and I was a strange misfit adolescent, so I think I was simply delighted to have a lover. He was never sexually interested in me, and I practically had to compel him to do anything sexual with me. Because I had never been in a relationship before him, I assumed this was normal. In any case, I was foolish enough to marry him. I expected things to change and that he become more sexual with me. I was because nothing changed and things just got worse. The continual rejection made me despise myself even more, and I felt even more like an outsider. I repeatedly described the matter to him, and he continued telling me that he would change. I even sent him a 4-page letter full of sincere sentiments. What's more, nothing changed. So my brother's girlfriend's ex added me on Facebook in January of this year. We got along well. Things proceeded rapidly, and we ended up sleeping together, which we have done ever since. We were fooling around on Facebook when my brother saw it. My brother became completely terrified and stopped speaking to me for a short period of time. It wasn't even sexually explicit postings, just a few lighthearted jokes. I lied to my brother and said I wasn't talking to this person anymore, but it's much worse. Things are becoming serious between me and this man, and I'm terrified I'm going to lose my brother because of him. I can't abandon him since I have emotions for him. However, I get the impression that he uses me to gather information on his ex and her family. I did question him about this, and he swears he isn't. I get the impression that he just joined Facebook to obtain information or exact vengeance on my brother and his fiancée. He's a known player, yet he insists on changing and having a solid relationship. I attempted to leave him, but I can't since we have such a strong connection. What should I do?